show it to be unlike any other. And behind his words, which were copious, fantastic, and agitated, there was nothing but a bit of cold, a dream not dreamed by anyone. At first he thought that everyone was like himself, but the dismay shown by a comrade to whom he mentioned this vacuity revealed his error to him and made him realize forever that an individual should not differ from the species. At one time it occurred to him that he might find a remedy for his difficulty in books, and so he learned the small Latin and less Greek of which a contemporary spoke. Later, he considered that he might find what he sought in carrying out one of the elemental rights of humanity. And so he let himself be initiated by Anne Hathaway in the long siesta hour of an afternoon in June. In his 20s, he went to London. Instinctively, he had already trained himself in the habit of iPad going blank. Perfect. Instinctively, he had already trained himself in the habit of pretending he was someone, so it should not be discovered that he was no one. In London, he found the profession to which he had been predestined, that of actor, someone who on a stage plays at being someone else before a concourse of people who pretend to take him for that other one. His histrionic work taught him a singular satisfaction, perhaps the first he had ever known. And yet, once the last line of verse had been acclaimed and the last dead man dragged off stage, he tasted the hateful taste of unreality. He would leave off being Ferex or Tamburlaine and become no one again. Thus beset, he took to imagining other heroes and other tragic tales. And so, while his body complied with its bodily destiny in London bawdy houses and taverns, the soul inhabiting that body was Caesar, unheeding the augur's warnings, and Juliet detesting the lark, and Macbeth talking on the heath with the witches who are also the fates. No one was ever so many men as that man. Like the Egyptian Proteus, he was able to exhaust all the appearances of being. From time to time, he left in some obscure corner of his work a confession he was sure would never be deciphered. Richard states that in his one person he plays many parts, and Iago curiously says, "I am not what I am." The fundamental oneness of existing, dreaming, and acting inspired in him several famous passages. He persisted in this directed hallucination for 20 years. But one morning he was overcome by a surfeit and horror of being all those kings who die by the sword and all those unfortunate lovers who converge, diverge, and melodiously expire. That same day he settled on the sale of his theater. Before a week was out, he had gone back to his native village, where he recuperated the trees and the river of his boyhood, without relating them at all to the trees and rivers, illustrious with mythological allusion and Latin phrase, which his muse had celebrated. He had to be someone. He became a retired impresario who has made his fortune and who is interested in making loans, in lawsuits, and in petty usury. It was in character, then, in this character, that he dictated the arid last will and testament we know, from which he deliberately excluded any note of pathos or trace of literature. Friends from London used to visit him in his retreat, and for them he would once more play the part of poet. History adds that before or after his death, he found himself facing God and said, "I, who have been so many men in vain, want to be one man, myself alone." From out of a whirlwind, the voice of God replied, "I am not either. I dreamed the world the way you dreamed your work, my Shakespeare. One of the forms of my dream was you, who, like me, are many and no one. Yeah. In honor of Leonard Cohen's death, I was going to play the Sisters of Mercy. But then in honor of Tom Petty's death, I was going to play Free Fallin'. Both perfect Dharma songs. But I'm going to do something else instead. So many good choices. So, sounds good. Thank you. I'm just singing something about that which we long for and are. Satchidananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameda Shri Bhagavate Namaha. Satchidananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameda Shri Bhagavate Namaha. Satchidananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameda Shri Bhagavate Namaha. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dream that you dare to dream really do come true. One day I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the stars are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops, way above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why can't I? One day I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the stars are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops, high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Skies are blue, and the dream that you dare to dream really do come true.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you. Lovely poem. Apropos of his almost 404th centenary of his death last year, Shakespeare's death. Oh, yes, sir.
And the other mic until I get back.
Okay. And your fusion song, it was Vedic chanting in a Tibetan intonation with an American instrument. It's beautiful. It's terrific.
Portuguese Hawaiian instrument.
Yeah.
No, really? Yeah. Oh, okay. Hawaiian, that explains it. Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, I won't. Yeah, okay. I'd had a really bad impression, I guess, with the ukulele. I was in Hawaii several years ago, and there was a small group of elderly hippies, really, on Kauai, sitting around, and 6 or 8 of them strumming the ukulele. And actually, they were all there that had been told by their doctors to learn. They'd had head injuries, and they were told to take up the ukulele. And the sound was, I mean, you can imagine it was really, really bad. So it was beginning to, my opinion was beginning to change a little bit when I told the story to my sister, who, unbeknownst to me, had taken up the ukulele a couple of years before and was really offended and said it's a magnificent instrument, and Warren Buffett plays it, and lots of great people. So we clearly had a demonstration tonight, Dean. Thank you. And now we have Sam Hendricks with a one-man skit.
So, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. No? I probably turned it off. How about now? Okay, good. So I'm actually supposed to be somewhere else tonight. I promised a friend that I would create and perform a children's skit at a Halloween harvest festival that's going on right now 700 miles away. And the reason I'm not there is because I realized about a month ago that I double booked this, and I felt terrible, and I had to find a replacement, and I'm just going to perform to you what I was going to perform to them. And I'm going to ask you to sort of put yourself in the place of 8 and 10 and 12-year-olds. And I need to give you some background about the circumstances of this skit. This festival takes place in the woods, and little kids are gathered in groups of about 15 or 20, and they all have lanterns in their hands, and they're being guided through the woods, and they come one upon the other upon these sort of vignettes in the woods, in little clearings. So you will be walking as these children through the woods, and you'll hear my voice singing. You'll see a light ahead of you, and you'll come upon a clearing where it's just brilliantly lit with candles and lanterns, and there's a scaffold that is high up into the trees. And on the top of the scaffold is me, dressed as a painter, a house painter. And I'm surrounded by cans of paint. And I have my hands over my head, and I'm painting the leaves, the autumn leaves, which are cascading down upon me. This is a poem I wrote called The Leaf Painter, and that's how it would have appeared. Oh, the winter is coming and the summer is done. The skies turn cloudy and the rain has begun. Some call it the autumn, some call it the fall, but I call the season my favorite of all. I'm just a-painting the leaves, I'm painting them good. I'm painting these leaves just like a painter should. A red, yellow, orange, and golden brown. I'm painting these leaves before they fall to the ground. Well, glowing in the sunshine or floating through the breeze makes my heart soar, it puts my mind at ease. When the days are darkest and the sun don't shine, I'm splashing on the color to make you feel fine. I'm just painting my leaves, I'm painting them good. I'm painting these leaves just like a painter should. A red, yellow, orange, and golden brown. I'm painting these leaves before they fall to the ground. Now each leaf is different, 'cause none are the same. Now brightness and color are my middle names. I got one brush for sunshine and another for rain, and I'm a-splashing on, and I'm sorry, and they're lighting up the world like a blazing flame. I'm just a-painting these leaves, I'm painting them good. I'm painting these leaves just like a painter should. A red, yellow, orange, and golden brown. I'm painting these leaves before they fall to the ground. Thank you. Well, why there are people about in these woods tonight. Well, I welcome you all to my glen. But step into the light. It's a dark, chilly night, and these lamps may just warm you, my friends. It's good to have company this evening. You see, I'm out here alone, don't you know? I'm just doing my job with a dab and a daub by painting up high and down low. Now perhaps you've already discovered that I'm no common painter at all. I paint for good reason, to bring in the season by spreading the colors of fall. Now I say, have you ever wondered how green leaves change color each year? Why, the job's done by me. I'm a friend of the trees. I climb them at night with my gear. So listen close, and I'll tell you my story of how I became what I am. My tale is an old one, an ancient, a bold one. And it starts? Why, it starts where it all began. Now, long ago, when the world was invented, no colors anywhere could be seen. The earth was just gray, made of dust, dirt, and clay. And beauty was only a dream. But the sun and the moon came together, and they came up with a glorious plan. Why, they envisioned a world with colors unfurled, and they asked me to help if I can. So they gave me these paints as a present, and I started at first with the sky. I painted it blue in hundreds of hues, so the birds would have some place to fly. I colored the mountains, I colored the valleys, I painted the oceans and seas. I worked through the years, never stopping, my dears, until it was time for the trees. Now green were the leaves that I painted, in every imaginable shade. I colored the globe like a great green robe. But one problem it caused, I'm afraid. You see, as long as the trees stayed that color, well then autumn, it never could come. So they gave me new colors so you could discover bright leaves when the summer was done. So with my yellows and reds came the autumn, and orange and brown brought it too. And now the fall leaves shine bright in the October light, and 4 seasons come each year anew. So now you have heard my whole story, and nothing is left to be told. But you can find me right here, this time every year, when autumn begins to unfold. Thank you.
Sam, that was terrific. You have a great voice. You should definitely be a headliner on your next Peace in Schools fundraiser. You could really rake it in. A while ago, I'd sworn off writing limericks. However, I was requested to repeat one tonight. A devoted young student from Yale had Roop's sayings tattooed on her nails, and on her behind, for the sake of the blind, a duplicate copy in Braille. Now we have Sark. Where is Sark? Sark is going to give us an Oh, I got another one, but later. Improvisational movement piece. He left it deliberately mysterious.
Hi. Actually, I would prefer the lights to be on. Francesca, can you turn the lights back on? I want to be able to see people So dance has been a huge part of my life. It's kind of like my prayer and my practice. And I don't normally do it for other people. So it's more of an internal thing, and I dance because I don't like the script. I don't like to be told what to do and how to be and how to move. So I don't actually know what this is going to be. I might make sounds. I might fall down. If I go on the ground, I dance a lot on the ground. So if you can't see in the back, you can stand up and check it out. But I'm just going to take you on my journey of dance, and hopefully we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you, Sarkis. You certainly did succeed in impressing us. A few nights ago, I asked Sarkis if he felt like going for a walk. He said, "No, I'm going dancing in Berkeley." And, really? Wow. And he said, "Yeah, I go every night, anywhere, just to go dancing." And dances a night away, then comes back here in the morning, looking pretty zippy. So obviously it just gives you energy. It doesn't drain you in the least. It's beautiful. Thank you. Now we have a short story from Vivian. That one? Okay. Yeah.
Is this on? Yes. So this is a story I wrote about my favorite, very British aunt. Thank you. Super Aunt Tish. Aunt Tish knew how to make an entry. "Darlings," she'd boom, a huge bright red lipstick smile on her much powdered face, which was inevitably topped with a wide-brimmed hat festooned with exotic fabric flowers. The scent of Chanel No. 5 would instantly fill the room, which appeared to be suddenly infused with a soft, glowing light. She would stand, a large, buxom woman, framed by the living room door, giving us a chance to take in all of her glorious opulence. "Last week, I decided to go to London for the day," began Aunt Tish at dinner one especially memorable evening. "I thought I'd do a spot of early Christmas shopping at Harrods. I took the Bournemouth Belle up to Waterloo. The 845 has an agreeable dining room with quite an adequate breakfast. Eggs, bacon, grilled tomatoes and mushrooms, and of course toast and marmalade. Though they really should do something about the tea. Absolute dishwater, darling. It's always the same. Quite disgraceful." Aunt Tish put her hand to her hat, adjusting it slightly, a little more jauntily over to one side. "Well, there I was, sitting in the dining car, finishing my last piece of toast and marmalade, when a rather charming-looking man appeared beside my table, and he asked if he might join me. I did notice a vacant table further down the aisle, but after all, he was most appropriately attired, in an elegant yachting jacket with a maroon cravat. A matching silk handkerchief poked out of the chest pocket of his jacket. I noticed there was not a scruff on his shoes. He looked like a most suitable dining companion. I invited him to sit down. He introduced himself. Captain Herbert Morrison. He was a captain in the Navy during the war, and he'd received numerous decorations for his bravery. Now he lives the quiet life of a country gentleman. He said he occasionally takes a day trip to London for a little light amusement. When he invited me to join him for lunch at Bertarelli's in Soho, I told him I'd be delighted. Of course, Bertarelli's is that marvelous Italian restaurant that was written up in the Tatler. Princess Margaret was photographed there recently. We parted at Waterloo Station, agreeing to meet at 1 o'clock at Bertarelli's. Aunt Tish's fingers were moving up and down the stem of her wine glass. She watched as my father filled her glass. Anxious for Aunt Tish to tell us what happened next, I asked, "So, did you meet for lunch?" "Oh, yes, darling. After I'd shopped for my bits and bobs at Harrods, I took a taxi to Bertarelli's. I arrived to find he had acquired a lovely table at the window for us. He ordered a bottle of expensive white wine. He was quite the raconteur." "What's a raconteur, Aunt Tish?" I asked. "Someone who tells stories well, darling." And Aunt Tish paused and then continued, "And he seemed such a gentleman." Aunt Tish's wistfulness suggested that her lunch companion, was not, after all, what he might appear to be. She paused to touch her napkin delicately to the side of her mouth. After an absolutely delicious lunch of shrimp-stuffed ravioli and pears in brandy, I was feeling quite soporific. I took a breath to ask what soporific meant, but I decided I didn't want Aunt Tish to stop to tell me. We were sipping some excellent coffee, which I hoped might wake me up a little, when Captain Morrison suggested we go and see a film that was showing close by. I so enjoy going to the cinema. I told him I'd be delighted. Well, jolly good show, he said. Actually, darlings, in the dark of a cinema after our splendid repast, I thought I might take a little nap. I felt a little wobbly on the long walk to the cinema. I was relieved to hear him say, "Here we are." We'd stopped at the top of a wrought iron staircase that led to the basement of a rather shabby building. It didn't look like an entrance to a cinema to me. Before I could say anything, he took my arm and escorted me down the stairs and through a small door. As we made our way down an inadequately lit corridor, I noticed a rather unpleasant smell. Then we went into a small dark room with rows of seats. Apparently the film had already started. The captain whispered to me to sit down. I could just make out 2 seats in front of me next to the aisle, and I took one and the captain took the other. My eyes were becoming accustomed to the dark, and I was surprised to see that all the occupants of the seats were men. Not a woman in sight. The gentleman to my right was breathing in the most peculiar way. It was only then that my eyes went to the screen. Tish, there was disapproval in the tone of my father's interruption. Are you sure this story is suitable for the children? Well, Geoffrey, the truth is that film was not suitable for anyone. Just one glimpse of it made it quite clear to me that it was not the sort of film a gentleman brings a lady to see. It was not the sort of film a gentleman goes to see on his own, for that matter. Ignoring the knitting together of my father's shaggy eyebrows over his nose, Aunt Tish breathed deeply into her ample chest that rose in indignation, seeming to increase her height by a couple of inches. I was outraged. I stood up and I gave him a piece of my mind. "How dare you bring me to such a place?" I said. Some of those dreadful men turned around and told me to be quiet in a most uncouth way. I gave the captain a look of absolute disgust. However, it was so dark he probably couldn't see it. With all the dignity I could muster in that deplorable situation, I attempted to sweep out of the so-called cinema, but unfortunately, I tripped over the leg of one of those dreadful men watching that dreadful film, resulting in a nasty sprain. Imagine leaving his leg stuck out in the aisle like that. I could have broken my neck. So instead of a grand exit, I could only hobble to the door. Outside, it had begun to drizzle, and I had a perfectly frightful time finding a taxi. Finally, by practically throwing myself into the road, I got a taxi to stop. I went straight to Waterloo Station and caught the 4:15 home. What a day. My mother was laughing as she got up to clear the plates. My father poured more wine into Aunt Tish's glass, and then into his own, shaking his head. "Well, Tish, you don't exactly come off smelling like a rose yourself, you know, taking up with strange men." "I think Aunt Tish smells super," I pronounced. My mother brought in cups of coffee for the adults, and that was the end of the matter.
Thank you, Vivian. I think a particularly good big hand, since this is the first, after many, many retreats, this is the first time you've come up to actually show us your talents, including those of a raconteur. Thank you. It also betrays your still deep connection to the mother country. Now, we have a poem from Len. Len, there you are. Thank you.
With this?
Oh, whichever.
So, about 2 months ago, William sent me this poem, this wonderful poem, and it just stuck to me, and it has to do with form and how we work with our form, and it reminded me of a story about another kind of form that happened many years ago to me in northern Mali. And so I thought I'd tell that story and then read the poem. So in this area of Mali, when you buy something, it's wrapped in newspaper, and they make nice little packages, and you end up, here, I want peanuts, I want sugar, and they take a piece of newspaper and they make a beautiful package, and there you are. So I went to a store to buy some sugar and some salt and some peanuts and dates. And while I was in there, there's a wooden counter, and the shopkeeper, I noticed something I had never seen in this town called Gao, which was a paper bag. It was a little small paper bag. And so he had wrapped a couple of my purchases in newspaper, made the package, and then I said, "Oh, a paper bag, I want that paper bag." And so he took the paper bag, put it on the counter, tore it into a flat sheet, and then wrapped my little package and gave that to me. And then I walked out and had sugar dropping all along the way. So I had seen a paper bag, and he saw something else. And this is something that's stayed with me for all these years. Just in how we sometimes see things that we think there's something and then they're not. So back to the poem. So Rupert, I heard you talking about how good it is to memorize a poem. And I thought, I've never done that, but he made it sound so interesting. And I thought, but I could never memorize something as long as you have done. So I decided to memorize it, but have a backup. So here's my backup. That's my backup. So I'm going to see, and I'd like to share it twice. So I'll start by looking at it. Love will breathe you in. Don't worry, dear friend. When you die, you just turn inside out. The precious one you've been protecting can't disappear since it's already invisible. Losing the body is a momentary grief. That grief, a loving bow to your life. Time ends when you die. The wanting and waiting will be over, and the love you are made of will breathe you in. So I think I'll read it this time. Love will, and then I'll tell you who wrote it. Love will breathe you in. Don't worry, dear friend. When you die, you just turn inside out. The precious one you've been protecting can't disappear since it's already invisible. Losing the body is a momentary grief. That grief, a loving bow to your life. Time ends when you die. The wanting and waiting will be over, and the love you are made of will breathe you in. And that was from a Sufi non-dual teacher, Pir Elias Amidan. So, thanks.
Thank you, Len. Will you put that on the discussion board? I was just going to say, if you could post that, that would be terrific. I've never read a poem that made death sound so exhilarating. I mean, it's just beautiful, really beautiful. And now we have a song from Hilly and Mary. Okay.
We need the more. Can we put it down there? If we could have lights too, because these bhajans normally, lights.
Do you each want to?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Bhajans normally include everyone, and it's unusual we get up here all by ourselves, because usually on Friday evenings in Corte Madera we have singing circles, and we all sing together. So if you would like to, as we sing alone up here all by ourselves, shaking in our shoes, if you'd like to join us, you're so welcome. This started from me when I was in India for 3 years as a sannyasin, and I wrote songs of bhajans in English for the Indian children so that they could learn English through singing. And it was a wonderful way for them to learn. They all loved it. But that's what I did from 2001 to 2004. And when I came back to Marin County, where my mother was passing in 2005, I met Hilly, who was playing the piano in the retirement home where my mother was. And she was singing and playing the piano. And I said, would you mind if I join you? And we started to sing together. And that's how our relationship began, a year of singing together as friends. And Hilly would take me to all the different retirement homes where she was hired to sing and entertain, and I joined her. So that's it. So we're now going to do one of the songs we've written many, many songs, but this is one that you wrote, Hilly. This is I Remember.
Yeah.
So you want to do I Remember? Okay. They're very simple. And please, or you're going to do God is a Light. God is a Light. Okay, and please, if anyone feels like it, join in. You'll see they repeat themselves. Very simple, and they repeat themselves over their rounds and their harmonies.
So normally I get the note on the piano because I don't have a perfect ear, but so we're going to try this.
Not too long. Okay.
So we will sing the song first. It's just one line.
And sing it through.
And sing it through all the way. And then, so you can hear what we're saying. And then Mary will sing the first part, and I will sing the second part.
Okay, you want me to do that? Okay. Spontaneous. Okay. Okay. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is, I am, we are, hallelujah. God is, I am, we are, hallelujah. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see.
God is the light in which I am. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see.
God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is, I am.
God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see.
So can you do the other one? Okay, we have one more. It's also very short.
It's even more simpler.
It's simple. Yeah, it's simpler. And excuse me, that one was a little low. Could we go a little higher?
Yeah,
Thank you.
please.
Okay.
I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. I am love, I am joy, I am peace forevermore. I am love, I am joy, I am peace forevermore. I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. I am love, I am joy, I am peace forevermore. I am love, I am joy, I am peace forevermore. I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. I remember, I remember, I remember who I am. Just one little thing. These songs, they kind of came spontaneous, and what is really wonderful in us getting together, there are now kids who are, or grown-ups who are mentally disabled that I work with, and they love these songs. And I feel, I'm probably a little bit mentally handicapped myself, so this suits me perfectly. And I think maybe we all have a little bit of that, maybe. But thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful harmony. Very nice. Now, Elizabeth, we have a couple of short. Elizabeth, a couple of short film clips.
Yes, and I want to say something.
Get Michael's mic. Is there music coming out of the video? Is there music? Is there
There's
sound?
music, yeah, there's sound.
So we're gonna.
Okay. Hello. So my artist name is Kalista, and I'm a Dakini emanation artist. So what is the Dakini? Depends on who you ask, and one also never knows. So the Dakini is the feminine principle of enlightenment. Although our true nature transcends feminine and masculine, the feminine energies in all of us awaken quite differently than the masculine energies. So the Dakini reminds us that our true nature is empty, but pregnant and ripe with potential. I was sharing with some friends at lunch today. She's like a matador. She waves a red cape, luring the illusory self to the bait. And at the last minute, she like lifts the cape, and into the heart of God, the illusory self goes. So my artwork is inspired by the Dakini. And I'm going to show you some videos that I made. But the actual art arises first through a movement meditation. And through this movement meditation, something new, fresh, and alive wants to emerge. And I pay exquisite attention to it. It's very subtle at first, and then it begins to show me what kind of form it wants to take on. And I give it life through costume and dance and music. And I also use digital media with photography and film. And then I put it into an editing program and create a lot of surreal effects. So the last thing I want to mention before I show these is the first one. There's hundreds of embodiments. This is just, I'm going to show one example of one embodiment where my friend, one of my favorite poets, and she's going to be reading and speaking a poem while I'm dancing. And the second piece is, I love filming other women. It's one of the greatest gifts. I film women from all walks of life and diverse backgrounds and from around the world. And a lot of them come to me wanting to express something deep within. And it's so beautiful to see it come to life, and then for them to witness an aspect of their true nature in an art piece. And the last video, there's 3 short ones. This video I made, it was pre-Rupert, so you got to really forgive some of my terminology of awareness and consciousness. We're always learning and evolving, but it's something I also love to do with this artwork is hopefully inspire. And it was one of those things that I wanted to perhaps let people know the miracle that they are and the wonder that they are. So. The music's coming from the computers there, right?
Let's try this.
Okay. Oh, good idea. Okay.
We are the touchstone of that kiss where touching lives, to witness our isness as we the weave blanket our history through each morsel of sensuality woven together as a fired vessel bleeding to meet the heart that connects us all, both close and far. We are the touch. Within that kiss, we
Okay. So the Dakini is infinite in her expression, yet dimensionless. The light can stay off, that's fine. I have 2 potential pieces I can show that I filmed other women. How many, can I show some hands that would feel uncomfortable on any level with very brief but tasteful sacred feminine nudity? Anybody? Okay. There's a Tara in the well, and she gave me permission to show tonight. There's a Tara in the piece, and these beautiful Taras are always bare-breasted, yet in our culture, or at least the Western culture, sometimes women are either hypersexualized or shamed to be in their bodies. So this was kind of a sacred reverence of her beautiful music and her being. Thank you. Do we have time for the last one? It's okay? Okay. This is the one you have to excuse the words about awareness and consciousness. Okay. But the essence, the intent is pure.
Before this person, in this body, on this earth, your essence is soul. A soul at one with this exquisite universe. Beyond this physical universe, the cosmos in all dimensions, even space and time. The love light of your soul opens as consciousness. Consciousness fans out as creator, unfurling further within vast, pristine awareness. Beyond awareness, light and dark, beyond everything, is the infinite abyss. Absolute nothing, like a backdrop of existence of infinite potential. Everything arises, springing forth in this eternal now, including the animation of your unique, bright source, birthing a precious one-of-a-kind expression out of infinite potentials. We now move forward. The journey opens as consciousness fully embodied, awake and aware, returning forward toward the infinite. You are the love affair of the infinite abyss and everything arising. You are the miracle in between that love, simultaneously nothing and everything, birthing something exquisitely new in every eternal moment. Surrender to the infinite abyss at the core. Fall back. Let it dissolve all that is not you. And arise, holy, new, fresh, and alive. Let your spirit animating the soul of your unique being into its full potential. Sometimes knowing you are nothing allows you to truly become something. Let go and let your beautiful light shine as a gift to your heart, your home, to all people. Lavish that or that. You die and resurrect in each eternal moment, dissolving, becoming. Emerge from the infinite holy waters and breathe open that fresh essence to live as life, intimately. And if you wish, become more of its beauty, majesty, and freedom of love's expression.
I was trying to put words to my impressions, but I think what Rupert's talked about, the artist's role, the artist's dharma, you've really embodied in these three presentations. Absolutely beautiful melding of sensual and spiritual, and the music, the imagery, the movement is just all a hard act to follow. So thank you. Now we have a duet, a flute duet with Ananda and Corinne. We've all enjoyed Corinne's music before, and it's absolutely beautiful flute music, but we've not heard the duet with Ananda, so I look forward to this.
just have a couple of short poems. The first one's from Rilke. God speaks to each of us as we are made, then walks with us quietly out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You who are sent here beyond your recall. You who are sent out beyond your recall. Go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself forget me. Nearby is the country they call life. You'll know it by its seriousness. Take my hand. And this is my poem. Land, a light, right here where you are. No need to turn towards celestial realms to fill this hunger for heaven. The kingdom of heaven is now. The face of God, the hand of God, the voice of God is everywhere. And we are God's music being played. Come. Stand still. Stand still in the light of your limitless heart and listen. Stand still in the light of your limitless heart and listen. Yeah.
Thank you, Ananda and Corinne. I think those two poems, actually, the Rilke poem and your own, expresses what this week has been for me, and I think that's true of many of us. It really captured it, so thank you. And now we have something quite different. I was sneaking a few minutes of watching Rupert and Noah on the tennis court today, and I saw some real gymnastics on Noah's side, and now he's going to give us some of his gymnastics right up here. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, this is wired, so we got to be careful.
We can just leave it.
You can share? Okay.
Okay, so my two brothers are really interested in joining the circus, and so they're training all the time. So I try to do handstands with them to just join in and participate. It's a good way to connect. So this is where my handstand is at the moment.
certainly a first. Thank you, Noah. And now we have Suzette. Where's Suzette?
I'm here.
Oh, I can't see. There we are. Okay. Well, how can...
Okay, this is just a little silliness that I do. I like to make up little singy song things to celebrate different things. And every year I get so excited when it gets warm enough that I can take off my shoes and put on my sandals. So I would go every April, I would come to work. The first day I wore my sandals that year, and I would sing my little song to all my co-workers, and they always liked it. And I can't sing, but I'm going to try anyway. It goes like this. Back in my sandals again. Back where my feet are, my friends. Where my piggies, they don't squeal, and my ingrown toenails heal. Back in my sandals again. Well, after a few years of this and a few verses, which I won't bore you with, we moved to the Pacific Northwest. And then my little sandal story had to change a little bit. And then it went, I hope my toes don't get wet, 'cause it hasn't quite stopped raining yet. But if it's rain or if there's sun, I'll be out there having fun, back in my sandals again. So one more little verse that as we were planning, as our retreat ends, and I was thinking about what we would be doing once we get back home again, this is what I came up with I'm going to be doing, is back watching YouTube again. Searching for true non-dual friends. So many teachers there to choose, but with Rupert we can't lose. Back watching YouTube again.
Yay, Suzette. Thank you. Great, Suzette. Do another verse for the next retreat. And now for some more silliness. This little skit is dedicated to Luis and Manev, wherever they are. And you'll understand why as it unfolds. I don't think Lear wore glasses, but anyway. Greetings, Cleopatra. Is there anything you'd like to discuss?
King Lear, I just came from the Temple of Isis, and it was packed. A huge crowd listening to some wandering prophet. My slave caught some of his drift, something about being aware, and we need to walk ourselves backwards until we find it. Easy for him to say in his bare feet, although he did have nice tunics on, I must say. Ever tried walking backwards in the sand in high platform sandals?
So you walk backwards until you fall into what?
Well, this was the thing. He said you eventually fall into something called John Smith. I just fell into the Nile. But somehow, I feel related and connected to this Smith character. It's strange, since I thought I'd bumped off all my relations.
So what does your Mark Antony think of all this?
Well, that's the thing. He was right up front there in the temple yesterday and this morning, glued to every word. He didn't go out drinking last night, and this morning, instead of a boat trip down the Nile as we usually take, he was signing peace treaties and doling out 5 drachma coins to every beggar in sight. Now half of Cairo's dressed in rags and getting handouts. It's chaos. And I've got this Queen of Sheba visiting next week. I tell you, this prophet guy is a real pain.
Well, actually, I gave him an audience recently, just this morning, and I told him all my problems. Vikings raiding my kingdom, my daughter's driving me nuts. But you're going to have to banish him. He told me just to smile at them, smile within. Got to banish him. What I was thinking was, or else get Mark Antony to banish him. Send him out into the desert. He's from my part of the world. He'll like the sun and the heat.
Mark won't banish him. King Lear, you have to do it.
Look, I'm an old man. I've lost my zippy for these things. Besides, I'm in a different play. I can't do it.
Well, according to this guy, it doesn't matter, since there's no time, there's no space. Besides, we're both in tragedies. Just give him a one-way boat ride back to your part of the world.
Well, he seems pretty conservative. He might be he's probably actually a monarchist. If you tell him that his king back home will take him for tea and biscuits at the palace, he'll be on the next boat home.
It's also simple. You just have to turn around and smile at everyone.
And you are
John Smith?
Who am I? What kind of sacred question is that? I am the thinker of your thoughts, the doer of your deeds. I am you. I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, formerly known as John Smith, but now, forever, the transformed and ever-present Josephine. But you can call me Joe. Who am I? I am the essence of all. I am the isness of the is. I am. Oh yeah. I am what I am. And I'm. That's all that I am. And so are you. And you.
It's true. It's true. I feel so generous all of a sudden. For you, little for you, for you. Oh, and definitely
especially for you.
Thank you. Actually, you can give the money back to us now. I mean, I'd let you keep it, except it's for the staff. Thank you. 20? Wow. Oh, okay. Wow. Oh, now we have Amrita with a short poem, and what she told me is a free write, W-R-I-T-E. Thank you, Anand. Amrita.
Hi. Actually, I have two offerings, and the first, so a free write, I go to a writing group every 3 weeks, and we read stuff we've brought, and then we have 15 minutes and we just write. And this particular evening occurred 10 days into the fire in Sonoma County, so most of the offerings, including mine that night, stemmed from the catastrophe that was occurring in our neighborhood. This is called They Are Us. Fierce and unrelenting, the wind blew toward us. Charred paper, shards of lives rained down in our yard 10 miles from the fire, 10 miles away. Is the ash of people raining down too? Are we breathing each other in? On Wednesday, 2 days after the fire tore through, a friend saw a man flick his cigarette from a car. She wanted to chase him down, rip open his door, holler, "What are you thinking?" Living here, the suffering is close. We are shredded by loss. Now we know firsthand, no California dry season will ever seem benign. The ashes of people and animals rained down too. They are us. We breathed each other in. And then to end on a different kind of note, this is a poem by David Wagoner called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you.
Thank you, Amrita. Those two pieces are beautifully connected. And yes, and thank you for giving expression to something that was so recent and so devastating. So, Shirley is going to give us something called The Elder of the Sea. I'm not sure whether that was it's a poem. Thank you. A poem entitled The Elder of the Sea.
All right, nervous again. So this past May, my daughter and I went on a women's retreat to Mexico to be with the whales. And we spent 1 week on the Pacific side. This was in Mexico. So we spent 1 week on the Pacific side at a lagoon to see the gray whales. And there we got on a small motorboat, and we went out into the lagoon, and we saw the mothers and their young, and she was teaching them how to be ready to travel to the Bering Sea. And they came right up to our boat, they breached real high, and you could pet them, you could kiss them. It was very playful and very joyful. And then the second week, we went to the other side. We went to the Sea of Cortez, and there we kayaked out into the Sea of Cortez, and we camped along some of the, just along the shore in several coves. And there we saw the blue whales, or hoped to see. But it was a really different experience because you really didn't see them unless you had your binoculars on. They really kept a distance from us. But we were one of the leaders of the retreat was an animal communicator. And so she really encouraged us to, listen to the whales. And a poem came out of that for me. So I'd like to share that with you. Elder of the Sea. We gather reverently at the shore, rooting our shapes into the soft sand. Your profoundly deep and moist breaths echo inside our silent hearts, and the full spectrum of your body sounds shake the undulating tides toward shore. You silently speak in many tongues, so each of us can hear the truth inside our own and eager hearts. We listen with unbroken intent. Nothing is missed, and no one is forgotten. After many breaths, you breathe your ancient counsel. I carry my young through these sacred waters that have known many births. One day my calf will travel alone and carry her own message in the tongue of the Great Mother. Your own young already travels the great sea and listens before her time. You belong to this timeless knowing, and now free to live among your own sacred waters. Swim your way home now. Swim your way home now. You will always find me. I live in the great chamber of your own heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley, very much. And now Go is going to present his spontaneous chanting.
I wanted to sit here. I need a light. Actually, it's better bright atmosphere. And why I want to do this is to share my joy in Maui Island. You know, you have a lot of nature, beautiful nature, and then at the beach. And I sometimes go there, sometimes alone with friends, my wife. And then I just sing. And spontaneous, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like melody comes spontaneously. And I don't know if I can do it today. So please bear with it. And maybe chanting or singing. And then I use mic in the beginning, but if I, like some energy goes so big, then I will put the mic aside. And I want to kind of conclude with celebration. That's my intention. Oh, no. Maybe here. Okay. I think I just want to say one more, that this is something like I found my body-mind configuration, awareness and joy.
Thank you, Go. I just picked up resonances from many traditions. Thought of course, the American Indian chanting. I thought of Irish keening, and no, that was beautiful. Thank you. And now we have Doug. Now, for those of us who were treated with Doug's blog site, but also his presentation to us a couple of years ago on his mom, his Zen mother. And so this is the next installment, wherever Doug is. Doug, here we are.
There's no sound. No, no. So, no, I'd like the lights up, if possible, because I want to see everybody. No, we're good. Thanks. So first of all, I want to really say thank you to everybody who has come up to me over the past few days I'd like to say thanks to everybody who's come up to me over the past few days and told me that you read my piece about my mom, or for those of you that I met 4 years ago at the Santa Sabina conference, and you've told me so many stories about how you've taken my mom to your heart, and you've also shared your stories about your loved ones, your parents, your siblings, and sometimes about yourself and your fears of dementia and your experiences of dementia, and sometimes your enlightenment through dementia. And I just can't thank you enough for that. And every time a person thanks me like that, I reconnect with my mom, and I feel my mom's spirit is working through me to all of you. And so I just want to thank you so much for that. And for those of you who haven't seen the earlier presentations, just my mom was 95 years old. She has severe, profound actually, Alzheimer's dementia, as diagnosed by the Mayo Clinic, no less. And it's gone all the way from just losing her keys more than 15 years ago up until now, which is she has hardly any noticeable memory, and on most days she doesn't speak a whole sentence. It just comes out as gibberish. And that's where she is today. However, that said, as a kind of a baseline, what I'd like to share with you tonight is an update on Mom, and to let you know how she is and how she is today, and also to share with you how I experience Mom, and in fact, the one thing I'd really want to share with you tonight is actually quite fitting, because we've heard so many poems, and I'm going to offer you a poem that Mom wrote, but it was written on one afternoon about a week ago, and 9 out of 10 days, as I said, the whole day goes by and all that comes out is just gibberish. It's just unintelligible, la 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 kind of thing. On this particular day, I read her a poem by E.E. Cummings, and something stirred in her, and she started to talk, and she was talking like E.E. Cummings, as a matter of fact, and I could barely understand what she was saying. I had to bend over and listen really, really close, because the words were just coming out, and they were falling like leaves, if you will. And she wasn't even, it wasn't as though she was even speaking to me. She was just speaking. So everything that I'm offering you now is a kind of a prelude to this poem that well, it was just her monologue, which I wrote down and which I'll share. But let me just show you a few pictures. I have 10 slides of where Mom is at right now. And this will also bring you up to date on the last couple of years. Okay, this was a picture taken in August, and that's 95-year-old profound cognitive dementia as diagnosed by the Mayo Clinic. Now, Mom had just the previous month gotten out of hospice, because last year I missed this conference because Mom was in hospice, and she was there because she had multiple infections and hospitalizations, and she was so depleted, her doctor said, the next stop is hospice. We're sorry, but that's it. Well, then in hospice, she finally, for the first time, got the care that she needed, which we weren't even sure, I didn't even know, and our family didn't know what kind of care she really needed, but in hospice she finally got it. How's that for irony? And she was nurtured back to life, and that's the way she looked upon graduation from hospice. So graduation from hospice does not mean dying. These are all pictures taken from this last summer. And I just would like to say, let me start to give you like an interpretation of how I, as her son, relate to her. So when I look at my mom like that, I look at her eyes, and I see a brightness. And again, this is a woman that society has written off. She's been in memory care, she's been in adult foster care, she's been in some of the blue chip elder care institutions in southern Minnesota. Most of her friends have gone. She's 95, a lot of them have died, but a long time ago when she started losing her language, she just started getting alienated. And yet, look at that, and there's a tremendous amount of life and joy, and whenever Rupert uses the word shining, I always think of Mom. Now, those were all happy pictures, but to be honest, this is what it looks like sometimes too, And, of all the times that I've spoken here, this is the one night when it's hard for me to hold back tears, honestly. There's just so much emotion coming up this time. And this is what, there's fear in those eyes. And there's also searching and caring. And in other words, she's fully alive and communicating, yeah? So I just have a few pictures that show these other personalities, not the smiling photographs that, quite honestly, myself and my family, we're all trying to get Mom to smile in photographs. But we have to get the reality here. And that's winter time to me. And that aliveness is still there. And that searching and that communication, her eyes are communicating very actively. And she just seemed to be coordinated in white that day. And she must have taken on Rupert's color scheme for the day. Now, last year she was in the hospital for all these infections and dehydrations and such that were the result of inadequate care, and that's all. But that's what it looks like sometimes. That's what dementia looks like sometimes. And illness, just straightforward, straight up illness. And this was another one of the hospitalizations. There's an intensity, isn't there? She is very connecting with life, and she's looking at me. I've got my iPhone up like this, and she's, what the hell are you doing? kind of a thing. But there's a quality of searching, and a quality that I've mentioned about Mom. Throughout her life, she was an artist. She was a practicing artist, and I always think of her as like her talent. Yeah, she's a great artist. She makes great watercolors. She made great oil paintings. And she occasionally will dabble in sculpture, and she got really into photography for a while. But what I always think about Mom is she's a great noticer and she watches and she notices. And she's never, ever bored because she's always noticing things. And if there's one gesture that summarizes my mother's personality, she's pointing. Throughout my childhood, she would always be pointing to things. And I remember as a young kid, she would be pointing, and she'd be pointing at a cloud. There would be no commentary. She would just say, "Look at the cloud," and I'd look at it, and with my little 6-year-old brain, I'd say, "Yeah, so what? It's a cloud," or "Yes, so what? It's a rock," or so what? It's the ocean. So there's a huge amount of emotion coming up for me right now, which is one day I figured it out. What she's pointing at. It's reality. And she's looking, right? And I'm so happy she's looking at all of you right now. It's fantastic. I wanted to say, too, that she was an artist all her life, and I know that one thing that she wanted more in her whole life, she wanted to be in a community of artists. And it didn't happen for her that way. She ended up being a doctor's wife in a cow town in southern Minnesota. And that's the way it was. And she did what she could. But she would have loved to be here with you and to have her creations shared with you. And so I'm very happy I'm going to be able to read you this E.E. Cummings poem by my mother a little bit later. Yeah, she would be overjoyed. But you know, she is beyond that now. This is a hospital picture, which I just think it's classic in a kind of a formal portrait kind of a way. I'm kind of proud I took it, actually. But I took about 20 shots on this one. I mean, it's got the shawl, it's got the cup, the fork. I mean, the posture, it looks like it should be in a museum, but it's also Mom. It's a Mount Rushmore kind of a face right there. And she's watching a nature documentary on TV. There was a waterfall. She was looking at the waterfall in the hospital. And I did want to say, too, dementia offers so many opportunities for intimacy. And we just zipped over the one just before here. I want to show you, for one thing, I want to show you my wife, Donna. But now, let me say this about Mom and her dementia. She was capable. I know she was capable, but she did not actually express herself this way until she had dementia. The conditions of her life were such that the middle part of her life was rough, was hard. It was a hard marriage. It was a hard upbringing, the 4 kids. And there was a contraction, there was a defensiveness, all of the communication that was coming from her body and her eyes. You didn't see that until she was hitting her 70s. And it's actually unfolded more, and it's become more pure and more direct in her dementia. And there's this intimacy that you can see, like the way she doesn't know Donna's name. She doesn't even know she's my wife. She doesn't know I'm her son. But she can connect with that body and around the hand right there. And look at the look on her face. You know, there's a melting, there's a dissolving, there's an openness that's being expressed constantly through my mom. There's not a second when it's not pouring out of her. And it's fantastic to see. And during that poem that was just offered about the breaching whale, my mom is my breaching whale. It's reality showing itself, just shooting out of the water. You know, that's it. It's fantastic. And all of the sharings for tonight, I saw my mom in everyone. And this is it. I mean, the magnificence and the enormity of love showing itself. She's brought that to our family. And this is another picture. So here she was in hospice. She was just about a month from graduation there. But this just captures a moment. That's my hand. I reached out, and I'm kind of doing this with her hand, and she's doing that with her hand. And she's just in that state. It's just pure relaxation, pure enjoyment, and pure communication through those hands. There's a painting by Michelangelo that this reminds me of. But it's getting it down to ground level. It's just pure communicative love, you know. And Mom is teaching and showing this all the time. So I'm just going to stop on that picture. That's very Mom. And how about the aliveness and the interest in those eyes? And how about the willingness to be right here, right now? You know, expressed through those eyes and through that expression. So that shows you some pictorial images of Mom. And so let me tell you about the day that I spent with her, the afternoon. It went by in about an hour. So when I came to the room, she was sitting in her lounge chair, looking out into the back, which is a beautiful it's countryside. And so she gets to look at a kind of a pasture and a bit of a forest over, and she's just looking out the window, and she's quite still and silent. And let me say that one thing that's very much a feature of our relationship now is that she talks less and less. And for a person who loves words like myself, it's hard because I always want her to say things. But I realized that she's moving into a phase of her life where that's not what nature wants. That's not what she wants. She wants to be still and silent. And I have to be there for her, with her. And then I have to discover what's there. I have to discover what she's showing me in that way. And so I try to be present for that. So when I go to see her, the first thing is I try to take her on a walk. So I sing her a little song, and because she needs to get rhythm to get up out of her chair. So someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know, oh, oh, oh. And we're holding hands like this. And then she starts doing this in the chair. And then someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Whoop. Out of the chair, and then she's on her feet. And then I sing another verse, and she starts doing this, with her frail 95-year-old body, which is really cool. And so then we're getting into it. And it's very intimate and fun. And then we have to walk. So I do this thing which I learned from the good caregiver about how to hold a person who needs to walk, where you kind of put your arm around their back, and you hold on to the belt loop on the left, and you hold their hand on the right. It's kind of like dancing. It's a dancing posture. And you start to walk, and I'm still singing, because otherwise she wouldn't be taking the steps, So we actually walk around the house, and I'm singing Good Night, Irene, or, I've been working on the railroad, or whatever it is, but it has to have a good walking step. So on this day, we got around to the front. It's a porch that looks over a valley. And by the way, when she left hospice, I made sure that the conditions that she'd be in were just like in hospice. And one of the things that hospice, it was out in the woods, and I found a place in the woods so she could have nature around. So I sit her down, and immediately I start going into that mode where I'm trying to get her to say something, because I really want her to say something. And now this is where it starts, her personality really starts to come out, because she's kind of she knows who she is. And here I am saying, how you doing, Mom? How's your day going? How do you feel? And in my mind, I'm thinking, I just want her to say something. And she turns to me with that look, and she says, something, 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 something. So she really put me on my place. How much intelligence is there to do that? Rupert today talked about bungee samadhi. And how you're standing up there ready to take your bungee jump, and the pure and stark fear stops thought, and consciousness shines. Well, if you want excitement, try getting old, and try dementia. And Mom is getting comfortable on the ledge, and she's just shining all the time. That's the way I interpret it. And when language and memory are gone, and I put that in quotes, because as you'll see, they're really not. They're just not accessed. Clearly, they're not accessed very well. But sometimes it just pops out, and then I bring my reporting skills to getting the words down. But when language and memory go, it's like a space for a much vaster intelligence opens up, and sometimes it just starts to flood through. And it floods through the eyes. I hope those pictures have been showing that, but sometimes it actually takes what's left of the form of language. It really does. And it starts to shine that way, in an E.E. Cummings way, as you'll see in a second. But there's one other thing that happened on that day that I wanted to tell you, which is on the porch, the sun was coming down, so she needed a hat. So I went back to her room to pick up a hat, and I came back and gave her the hat. It took me about a minute and a half to come back. And when I came back and sat down next to her, she turned to me and she said, "Are you the same one?" And again, I take that question quite literally. That's a good Zen question. That's a good non-dual question. And then the answer is no, I'm not the same one. Neither one of us are the same one. So I read her the E.E. Cummings poem. And the E.E. Cummings poem was Anyone Lived in a Pretty How Town. And I'm going to read you 3 stanzas of it because it gets you, once you hear the 3 stanzas of this poem, you'll see, when you hear Mom's poem, you'll actually hear, I hope, how she has somehow absorbed that and started to express in that same mode. So it goes like this. This is what I was reading to Mom. And by the way, I'm reading it because I have found out that she likes it when I read her poems and when I sing to her. And she gets in a rhythm, and her eyes bright up more. And so here I'm reading. Anyone lived in a pretty how town with up so floating many bells down. Mom's going, yeah? Spring, summer, autumn, winter, he sang his didn't, he danced his did. Women and men, both little and small, cared for anyone, not at all. They sowed their isn't, they reaped their same. Sun, moon, stars, rain. When by now and tree by leaf, she laughed his joy, she cried his grief. Bird by snow and stir by still, anyone's any was all to her. Women and men, both dong and ding, summer, autumn, winter, spring, reaped their sowing and went their came. Sun, moon, stars, rain. When I read her that poem, I turned to her and I said, well, Mom, what do you think? And she said, you tell me. And I said, tell you what? And she said, everything. And then she started to say words. And so I'm going, oh great, I got it turned on, But again, it wasn't like she was talking to me. I really want to stress that. She just started saying these things, and I'm like scrambling like crazy to get them written down on my iPhone. I'm really paying attention like a reporter. And here's what she said. And I'm calling this poem, I'm titling it, Somebody Who Is Going to Be Old. Here's what Mom said in this murmur. I don't think there's anything. I don't remember what I had. How it is. Why it is. Down there, you can see things that are why. Now. That's it. What? Who? Okay? I just can't say. I don't know how. My mom is saying these words. I don't think there's anything in this. By the way, I'm giving my own intonation and phrasing, but these are her exact words. I don't go anywhere now. I'm just where I am. Everything's here. Has she been to one of these seminars before? Who's doing what with what? In. Something doesn't. And then she looks at me and she says, how is it from there? Is it right now? And then she turned away from me again and she started this kind of placeless murmur. I would like to him okay. I would like to have that okay. We can do it here. The other part is going that way. It's all in that. It's all of that. And then she leans over and she taps my iPhone and she says, all in that? That's it. That's it. I have no way to have it. So that's where it would be. Somebody who is going to be old. He could be doing. Who in their old is going to be doing what? Doing anything? Just something? Does he? Is he? Maybe there is something else. If there's one over there or there, and she kind of does this. You can see. And the best thing you can say is, yes. Thanks for Mom.
Well, thank you, Doug. We look forward to the next installment, 96.
Yes, here we go.
Okay. Now, it's been a really full evening, breaking all records, but we have one final act. It's not act, I'm sorry, show. T. Greg has animated short. This time of night, I'm glad it's a short.
Me too. So I'm father of 4 kiddos. They've all grown now, but back when they were young, anyone that's had kids knows how difficult it is to put them to bed at night. And so the name of this, I wrote a children's book when my kids were young, and it was about one evening trying to put them to bed. And about a year ago, I made the children's book into an animated short. And that's what you'll see tonight. I thought it'd be a fun way to end the evening. It's called Jammies, Teeth, Prayers, and Bed.
Clock read 7:30. We were full from apple pie. I was looking forward to the evening.
It's the streaming. The internet's kind of slow here.
Uh-oh.
I'll never get Huh.
To relax, but it was far, far less than restful. Here are the frenzied facts. It started out so innocent. These simple words I said. All right, you little ankle biters. Jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed.
But we want to watch TV! And then please read us a book.
I tried to say no. I really did. But they gave me that certain look. We watched just one TV show. Then it was Goldilocks that I read. And again I begged the little tykes. Jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed. They scampered to their room. What an obedient crew. Now Mom and I could settle down, if just for a moment or two. I headed for the old recliner. Mom wanted some time to talk. At last there was peace and quiet as the bell told 9 o'clock. Oh no, I said. I hear some crying. I looked at Mom, but she just sat there, sighing. I squirmed a bit, then recited my usual. Please behave and quit your bickering. No punching, kicking, pushing, or whining. No quarreling, arguing, or snickering. No pinching. pulling or wrestling, no hitting, spitting, or biting, no scratching, bugging, bossing, or screaming, no pulling hair, poking, or fighting. Please, 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 I cried as my whole face turned bright red. This is the very last time I'll tell you. Jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed.
Dad, you've got to help them out a bit. They're just little kids. You know them. You can't just tell them with your words. Sometimes you need to show them.
It was calmer now. They had abandoned the fight. But not a single kid had even begun to settle down for the night. Tori was drawing a picture, crayons all over the floor. Britta was doing her homework.
I only have 6 more.
Ryan was practicing gymnastics, stressing every spring on his bed. Samantha was playing hairdresser with 19 curlers on her head. What does it take? I pleaded. Do my words just pass through your heads? I can't put it any clearer. Jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed. Then I had a stroke of genius. They could see it on my face. It was time to turn this into a game, so I said, let's have a race. Britta got her jammies on first. Ryan was number 2. Samantha put hers on backwards. Tori just put on a shoe. Let's brush our teeth, I cheered. The bristles will make them shine. Then I gathered them round to say a prayer. They each made up a line.
May God bless Mommy and Daddy, our family, and all our friends. Help us to always do our best, from morning till each day ends. Thank you for our home and our health, and everything else, by the way. And a special thanks for listening to us when we pray to you each day.
I gently tucked them in, then kissed each one on the head. I couldn't believe we were finally done with jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed. I shuffled toward my lonely recliner. My heart felt tender and warm. Everything suddenly seemed so peaceful. 'Twas the calm after the storm. Then I heard the door creak open. What could I have missed? Samantha stood in the hallway. She wanted one more kiss. All but one in bed. It seemed too good to be true. Then the other kids came barreling out.
We want one last kiss too!
It was 10:15 the hour of 10 when finally they all did crash. I said, Mom, now it's time for us to just kick back and relax. She looked at me and smiled. I was hanging by my last thread. She asked me what was on my mind, and this is what I said. I wouldn't trade this evening, hun, despite how it's unfurled. I love those feisty kids of ours more than anything in the world. Sure, I'm totally frazzled. They've tested me and beyond. But it's times like these we'll treasure when our children are grown and gone. With that, I started to doze myself. My eyelids felt like a rock. I said, oh my, we never did get time for just you and I to talk. Then Mom whispered to me those words that so often I had said.
Dad, I think it's time for our jammies, teeth, prayers, and bed.